Hi, welcome back to EducateTube.com. My name is Sipsky, your host. In this video, I want to talk about budget APS-C vlogging cameras from Sony. As you can see here, I have three of them, the a5000, the a5100, as well as the a6100. All these three cameras are amazing camera. Depending on the budget you're willing to pay, you can start out with the a5000 or you can go all the way to a6100. Each one of them will have a unique features that will fit that budget that you're willing to pay. So let's talk about it right now. Alright, so let's start out with the Sony a5000. Sony a5000 is actually pretty good camera even for the year 2022 for vlogging. It comes with a kit lens and a camera for around $200 to $300. Now the price I'm quoting is based on aftermarket price, so used camera. Just keep that in mind. So all these cameras that I'm quoting the price of are based on aftermarket price, used camera, okay? So this camera here has a flip-up screen just like the other two, and the autofocus isn't bad. If you're doing vlogging like I'm doing right now, just talking head, showing my face, then the autofocus will lock onto the subject. However, normally when I film, I don't like to rely on the autofocus too much, because sometimes when I move around, let's say I move my head down like that, and it will focus on something else, and it may not come back to my face. So that's why when I do all my, whether even the most expensive camera I have, I usually set it to manual focus. It's because I want to guarantee that I have the face or the object in focus all the time and perfectly. So manual focus, that's how I set for this camera as well as this camera, and even the a6100. Exposure is set manually as well. I usually set my ISO, my shutter speed, as well as a fixed aperture of f3.5 for the kit lens, all manually, okay? And the white balance, I also set it manually. I calibrated using a color chart with a gray card and get it all set up. So making sure that the room is well exposed and the color is just the way I want it. Okay, a lot of people say Sony color science in the older camera is not great. I would disagree with that. If you know how to set up the camera properly, whether it's Sony, whether it's Fujifilm, whether it's Panasonic or Nikon, I have all those cameras, and I learned how to set up the white balance properly for all those cameras. And even Sigma, I even have Sigma FP, I would set that up properly. Okay, just keep it in mind, it doesn't matter what camera you have. Number one, if you want a good color science, make sure you have a proper setup of the color balance. Calibrate those colors, those color chart. Get that color chart and set it up properly. Have it done the way you want it, and the color tone on your face will be great. Trust me on that, okay? Doesn't matter what camera you have. People complaining about color science, they don't know how to do the color balance properly. All right, unless they're very nitty-picky on certain type of color they want on the skin tone, that's a different story. But generally, most camera, if you know how to set it up properly, it should be okay, especially for YouTube videos. Like back to this camera here. This camera can shoot in 1080p, 24 or 30 frames per second. It has a codec using the older codecs, AVC HD, 17 megabits or 24 megabits. I would set it to 24 megabits per second, the highest quality that it can go for, so I would do that. For YouTube, you know, when you're doing full HD or 1080p, I think that's more than adequate. In fact, all my video, 95+% of my video, even currently, are using 1080p. And the reason I'm doing that is because it speeds up my editing process. When I'm putting 1080p on my time frame, everything just moves and edits so smoothly. Okay, so trust me, when I say use 1080p, even when you have a 4K camera, you will thank me for it. Now for this camera, the only thing I don't like about it is the fact that the battery is very small. Okay, so you can see here, this is a tiny battery. When you do a continuous recording, it will last maybe up to 70 minutes. 70 minutes may sound a lot, but my Panasonic GH4 that I'm recording right now can last at least 3 hours. So you can see the comparison between 70 minutes versus 180 minutes plus on the Panasonic GH4. So it's almost like more than twice as long. Although 70 minutes, I don't really record it continuously anyway. I usually, record 5-10 minutes and then I stop 5-10 minutes, or even less than that, even a minute. It's not a problem if the vlogging is very short, less than 30 minutes. I don't think you have a problem with that. Another problem or issue I have with this camera is overheating. Now, Sony a5000 isn't bad. If you record around 40 minutes or less, then you won't have any issue with overheating. However, if you're recording more than 40 minutes, especially outside in a sunny day, around 80 degrees Fahrenheit, then this camera can be a problem. It does overheat, especially this one here, the a5100. A5100, the one I have here, will overheat after 24 minutes. So now I'm going to talk about this camera in a minute and why I'm still using it for a specific purpose. Back to this camera. Another issue I have with this camera is the fact that it doesn't have any audio in for recording, okay? So for example, if I want to record with my lavalier mic, which is very important, audio is as important as the video. Without the proper audio input to record a good sound, then the video will not be as great, okay? So audio is so important to your video. Now for just normal recording and it's closed, then maybe the a5000 isn't bad. But if you're recording outdoor where there's a lot of noise, you would definitely need a special type of mic for that. If you're recording outdoor, that would be different because there'll be a lot of background noise and noise that you don't want to be part of the video. So it's good to have a lavalier mic or some kind of a directional mic to be input into the camera. So that's one thing I don't like about the a5000 or the a5100 as well. Now the a6100 does have that, but only audio input. You also need an audio output, which this camera doesn't have. This is why when I'm filming in a studio setting, my Panasonic GH4 is still my A camera. All right. So now the way out of this is to use an external audio recorder, which is what I use right now. You can see it has lavalier mic. So when you're purchasing the a5000, you might want to also think about getting an external audio recorder. This one I got around I think it's $30, and lavalier mic. So together maybe around $40-50. So together this would be a great system when you're doing vlogging. Now how would you then input the audio? Well, when you do video editing, you would then sync it properly, the audio and video. You'll look at the timeline. When you snap your finger on this camera, you'll match it with this audio recorder, okay? So that's how I usually do it when I'm filming with a5000 or the a5100. Now regarding Sony a5100, this has three main features I would think is better than the a5000. Number one is the fact that it has touchscreen, okay, touchscreen. Number two, the autofocus is definitely better than the a5000. And number three, the codecs is better as well. It's now using the modern XAVC, which is 50 megabits per second for HD. So it's twice more megabits than the Sony a5000. So that means you have improved quality. Now on the YouTube videos, I'm not sure how much better it is, but on my monitor, when I'm looking at the two video, Sony a5100 versus the a5000, I can tell the difference, okay? But on the YouTube, not so much. So just keep that in mind. Now the one thing I don't recommend a5100 for vlogging is the overheating issue on this camera is really bad, even compared to the a5000. I'm getting 40 minutes on this one, but only 24 minutes on the 5100. That's why I don't use it for normal vlogging. I use it for V-streaming. Okay, so streaming, this camera is for the budget and the price and everything. This is the camera to go for instead of the a5000. Because, oh, that's the fourth feature. It has a clean HDMI output, whereas the a5000 doesn't have. The problem with these two cameras, of course, another thing I forgot to mention is that it's limited to 30 minutes recording. There is a roundabout. You can download a special app that will take that limit away and you can record unlimited. Okay, you can check my link below, and that's what I did with these two cameras. Now these two cameras can record unlimited. Back to this a5100. The a5100, like I said, I use it exclusively for streaming. So when I'm teaching online, I use this camera. When I'm doing live streaming, I use this camera. Because it's very cheap, like within $400 or $500 when you buy it used with a kit lens. And now the only thing is you would have to get a special adapter, right, for the power. The special adapter for the power, that you can now record it for a long period of time and connect it to the HDMI output to the computer. These two systems that I put in place for this a5100 doesn't caused overheating on this camera. Yes, you heard it right. If you have external power and you connect it to HDMI output, say to the computer for live streaming, then I don't have any issue with the overheating. In fact, I remember doing a live streaming with my students for 2 hours and there was no overheating warning. So definitely if you have external power and HDMI output to the computer, you will not have any heating issue. I don't know why that's the case, but that's a great feature if you're doing live streaming, knowing that a5100 with clean HDMI output, by the way, is a great camera. This is a perfect camera under budget for live streaming, okay? 1080p Full HD. Lastly, the Sony a6100. If you have the budget for it, definitely go for this one. Now the reason for that is because the autofocus is truly amazing, right? I would definitely rely autofocus on this camera than my a5000, my Panasonic GH4, or the Sony a5100. The color science right off the camera is also amazing. I don't have to do too much calibration, like white balance and all that. It just comes out looking perfect. Now you could do that with the a5000 or the a5100, but you just have to tweak it, right, a bit more. I usually set everything manually, so I don't really have a problem with that. But again, knowing the fact that it has a feature that, just turn on the camera and start recording and you're gonna get a good color science, this is good. Another thing I like about this camera, it does have a audio in for recording audio. So for example, I'm recording with live via mic, I can put it in this camera, not a problem. The issue, of course, is that you cannot hear it because it doesn't have the audio out. So that's one thing this camera doesn't have. Whereas my Panasonic GH4 has that audio out, I can hear myself when I'm recording. Then I would be able to monitor my audio sound. So this camera doesn't have that feature. It's too bad though. Again, it's not bad. It still has that audio bar. You can see whether, the sound is too loud or too low. So it does have that feature. So I'm not too worried. As long as I keep the audio bar somewhere in the middle, then this camera is okay. So yeah, if you have the budget, then go for the Sony a6100. Now this camera is still using the regular FW50 small battery. It will only record for 70 minutes continuously. So not as good as a Panasonic GH4, which is like almost 3 hours or 180 minutes. So that's the thing about this camera here that, I don't like the battery and the audio out. But other than that, if you have the budget for it, go for the a6100. And you don't have to worry about other things I just mentioned. So thanks for watching. Next time I'll talk about individual camera, whether it's still relevant in the year 2022, and you know my opinion about them already based on this video. So look for that videos where I go in more specifics why I would still use these camera for year 2022, and I would not hesitate recommending them. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.